Well, well, it's finally here. The end of Ultimate Spider Man. After some delays, it has finally arrived. And what do I think of it? Well, it's alright. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great either. It was just okay. I mean, it's an ending. While the comic does end on a good note, you could tell there was supposed to be more to come. And I think Jonathan Hickman had other long term plans, but had to cut them short because Marvel has unfortunately been obsessed with making new number ones. And Ultimate Spider Man will probably get renumbered along with other Ultimate Universe series. And supposedly the Ultimate Universe might get like a soft reboot or something. I'm not entirely sure, but in any case, it I guess this really is the end of the Ultimate Universe that only lasted for like about 2 years, which is a shame because I think this was supposed to compete with DC's Absolute Universe, which is probably not stopping anytime soon, since Absolute Batman seems to be going strong. But for some reason, Marvel is cutting their competitors short. And if I were to bet, I think Ultimate Spider-Man was supposed to be a good competitor for Absolute Batman. That might be subjective, but I think the Ultimate Universe and the Absolute Universe had things to offer. But that is that. Marvel is going to cancel re or kind of reboot the Ultimate Universe. Not really sure, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I guess that is modern Marvel for you. So it is what it is. It all leads up to this and kind of ends the way that it's supposed to the way that it's supposed to end. Spider-Man finally fights the Kingpin in what you would call a rematch and a final battle. Richard and Black Cat have to stop the security system and infiltrate the Fisk Tower or something. And Uncle Ben and Jameson also expose the Kingpin to the world. And in the end, Peter and his family kind of live happily ever after. Although I will admit the way Mr. Negative and Kingpin die is a little anticlimactic. Part of me didn't really expect them to die the way they did. And these are things to think about, where what it would have been like if the series wasn't cut short and what Hickman's long term plans were going to be. But if I'm willing to bet, I think they were supposed to live longer if the series wasn't cut short. But since the series is ending, I guess Hickman just decided, fuck it. And he just kills them off, and that is how they die, and that is it for them. I mean, who really knows? I think these are things to think about of how things would have turned out if Ultimate Spider-Man wasn't cut short and what Hickman's long-term plans were. So I assume that Kingpin and Mr. Negative were supposed to be around longer, but since the series is ending, it's like, why bother keeping them around? So Hickman just kills them off, and that was that. A little anticlimactic. I understand why he did it, but it does feel a little underwhelming because it feels like this series had more going for it, and to kill them off just like that, does feel a little anticlimactic. You know. Don't know if that was always the plan, but the series is ending, so why bother keeping them around? So anyway, like I said, the comic does want an ending. What an ending is supposed to do. It kind of ties up everything, finishes the plot lines as quickly as it could. And for this comic, Peter does get a happy ending for once, which is nice. I do appreciate that. And I do like how the story kind of comes full circle, and you have the last page referencing the first issue. And it's like this full circle moment where Peter kind of realizes what really matters to him the most, which is, his family. So I do think it's a pretty decent and satisfying way to end the series. And if the series was longer and was able to flesh out more storylines more effectively, I think this would have been the best way to end the series. Full circle moment. So I like that. I do think the last page is a perfect way to end the series. Whether now or even if the series was longer, like it should have been. So while I do admit there is some good stuff I liked, I guess the main problem with the last two issues of Ultimate Spider-Man is that you could tell they were kind of rushed. And I guess, like I said, it was a little underwhelming. I think underwhelming is the one word you would describe the last 5, maybe 10 or so issues of Ultimate Spider Man, where it feels like a lot of stuff just happened without much depth or explanation for how it happened. Like, like how Otto just all of a sudden becomes Superior Spider Man and that was that. Or like how Richard somehow like survives. And I think I already said this in my last video, where the time jumps do hurt this book, and it does end up like cutting screen time for some of the characters. Like some of the relationships are just skipped over, and time passes too much, and we don't spend enough time with the characters, especially the Parker family. So when we come back in the next issue, it feels like a lot of stuff happened, and we just have to figure it out instead of us experiencing those moments as they happen. It seems like the important scenes are just glossed over after like a month passes and we only get references to it and we're left to figure it out. So I think I already said the time jumps hurt the book. So I talked about a lot more of the problems from Ultimate Spider-Man in the last video, which I might link in the description if you want to check it out. And speaking of the way some things end for the characters, I do feel bad for poor Harry Osborn, who just can't catch a break, because I thought this version would be the one Harry that would have some sort of some sort of happiness. But in the end, since Gwen, or a part of Gwen, I guess, says says that there is no us or them, something like that. I guess that's the end of their relationship. And Harry Osborn just ends up alone, which is kind of messed up. And I I know Harry usually has a rough life in the Spider-Man mythology, but I thought since this version was the one to kind of, inspire Peter and even be the one to give the with great power comes great responsibility speech, that he would have a lot more importance. And for some reason this series gives more time to I feel like this series gives more time to Harry and Gwen than Peter and Mary Jane, the selling points of the series. even had a whole issue dedicated to them. So I thought Harry would have much more importance, but that is that. I guess he just ends up miserable and lonely, and Gwen kind of becomes like the leader of New York, I guess. Maybe not exactly like the kingpin, but she would kind of like be in his position, and I guess be like the leader of New York and take over Kingpin's position, and that is that. The Council of Mysterios take over New York, and part of me wonders if Hickman would have gone somewhere with Mysterio becoming the leader of New York. That would have been interesting, but alas, this is the end of Ultimate Spider-Man now, so we'll never see that unless it's going to get renumbered. But as for Harry, he ends up miserable and lonely, and at least he gets rid of the AI of his father, which, which is commendable. At least that's nice, because, Harry's dad is one of the worst dads in all of fiction, so I don't understand why he would have that, but at least he got rid of it. I liked how this series introduced the idea of here of Harry being a hero. So I would have expected if Harry had some I would have expected if Harry had some sort of happiness, but what kind of story has Harry with a good life? But which just sounds kind of ridiculous because Harry Osborn is not meant to have a good life. But since his wife is dead, I mean, what can he do now? So yeah, I feel like poor Harry got done dirty. And it sucks because I think Harry could have deserved better. And also I think I speak for most people, not a fan of how the art changes in the same issue. Where I thought the reason there were more delays was because Marco Cacchetto needed more time to cook. But I also heard that he supposedly had health problems, so I guess that's why there was a fill-in artist. But still, it's kind of weird. Kind of messes with the flow. One second you have Marco Cacchetto's gorgeous art, and then the next second you get David Messina's. I think that's his name. I don't remember. You get David Messina's um, fine art. It's a really weird shift, and it really messes up the flow of the comic, especially with like the same scenes. And that was just a constant problem with the whole series. It's a shame that he couldn't dedicate like one artist for one issue. And they had to like switch back to back. It's a little distracting. But yeah, that is Ultimate Spider-Man 2024 or 2025, I think. A series that started out pretty strong, and everyone loved the first issue, and everyone was singing its praises, saying that it was one of, if not the best Spider-Man comic ever. I even loved the first 7 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. Really good. Some of the best Spider-Man comics we have ever gotten. And now everyone is saying that it fell off and the ending was okay or underwhelming. Some people hate it, some people think it's meh. And the ending is just not for everyone. Which is a shame, because this was the one good Spider-Man comic, and it was the big hope that Spider-Man comics can still be good. But alas, I guess typical Marvel has to fuck it all up. And now some people are saying that Ultimate Spider-Man won't be probably want to be remembered in like 10 years, the same way the original from 2000 was. And I have a feeling they might be right, which is a shame because I think Ultimate Spider-Man could have been one of the best Spider-Man comics ever, and finally given us a story of what it would have been like if Peter Parker was allowed to grow. The most that we got something like that was Spider-Girl from way back then. But I guess Marvel has to shoot themselves in the foot when they can. Even though I think this was the comic that could have been the rival to Absolute Batman. But so ends the Ultimate Universe. For now, I guess. I don't know Marvel's plan going forward. At this point, it seems like modern Marvel likes to throw random crap on the wall and seeing what sticks. But that is that. That is the end of the 2024 Ultimate Spider-Man. Let me know what you think of the ending, whether you like it or hate it. And that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, and until then, love and peace.